Hey guys, welcome to Friday. We took a week off, but we're back and we've traded Mitchell in for a taller, blonder gentleman.
I didn't think we'd get taller, but we got it.
We got taller, it's true. Daniel Peri, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
What do you manage around here at Shaw?
Our channel partner program.
Okay, what does that mean?
That means that we manage all of our resellers from outside of the company.
Okay, that's fascinating. Yes.
It's not.
I think it turns out that the rest of the company knows about as much, or we know about as much as about what they do as we do about.
As they do
vice
about
versa,
us.
as they do about us.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
There we go. Well,
Because I'm just glazed over there.
I know it's been a number of days since the Oscars were on TV, but we are still talking about it, and everyone's still talking about it. And interestingly, just before we walked into studio, it seems like we sort of all agreed that most of us in the Shaw TV department didn't like it, and then you said, "Oh, I loved Seth MacFarlane. He was great."
He was fine.
Really?
How? Fine? Or did you really like him?
He wasn't bad. He didn't distract away from the Oscars.
Then you are in a tiny, tiny minority of people who feel that way.
Yes.
I'm going to have to go ahead and disagree. I thought he was horrible, but I also think the Oscars are horrible.
Okay.
So it didn't distract at all for me either. I did fit perfectly, yeah.
Within the context of horribleness.
Exactly, yeah.
Why do you think the Oscars are horrible?
It's a bunch of people patting themselves on the back, getting all dressed up and going, "Yay for us!" Like, who cares? Who cares if you give yourselves awards? You know, that's ridiculous.
The
It's
Grammys
ridiculous.
are like that though too.
Oh, I think the Grammys are horrible too. Yeah, I really do.
But at the Grammys, people sing.
Yes.
So it's like
That's
a
true.
little, it's like a little concert.
Adele sang.
That's true.
Oh, that's true.
And
too.
Jennifer Hudson.
Not very good at
Yeah. Oh,
either.
but no, she did better than Jennifer Hudson.
Oh, yeah. What is it? Like, these people perform in front of thousands of people at concerts, and they choke on one show in front of, like, I don't know, 500 people.
Well, Jennifer Hudson's not Whitney Houston.
True.
I don't know even know what that means.
Well, she sang a Whitney Houston song.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't see all of the
And she
Oscars.
did.
I should put
It was a
that out there.
half-assed job. Like she doesn't have the range of Whitney Houston, and she's not Whitney Houston.
Okay, fair
And she
enough.
keeps playing Whitney Houston. Like she sang at Whitney Houston's funeral. She did her memorial. Now she sang at the Oscars a Whitney Houston song, and she's not as good.
Well, I guess
enough.
it's good that all the performances were not quite good because Seth was horrifying for me. So, in terms of performance, good. Put another person out there who didn't perform well.
But no, the sock puppets. Come on.
No, you know what? I have to be honest. When I turned the I didn't turn it on at the beginning. I was like maybe a half hour in, and I didn't even know who he was. Because I mean, I know the name, but I don't think I ever really knew the face, right? And I'm sitting there watching it and just thinking, this guy's not even funny. Like, I don't get it. And so then I started thinking, well, once I knew who he was, I thought, well, maybe it's because he's not a stand-up comedian. So maybe he can write funny stuff, but he just can't deliver it. But then as the jokes continued, they were just so bad.
Well, they were racist and
Misogynistic.
sexist.
Yeah.
And,
Of course.
and of course, when you turn on Family Guy, which is his big thing that he's done, that everybody knows him for, that's what you turn on expecting. So I suppose when you have him in the context of anything else, you still have to expect some of that. I don't know.
Like, and I sometimes I find that humor quite funny actually when I don't
you know what you're walking
can-
into, I guess, right? When you know you turn on Family Guy, you know what you're walking into. You turn on the Oscars, and you don't expect him to be saying.
And it also just wasn't clever. Like they were just below the belt
You're right.
jokes. Like
There's
they were, all you girls have been puking all week to fit into your dresses.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's not witty. It's not funny. Like I just don't even get who's laughing at that joke.
I read a really great article about that. I didn't really watch the whole thing because, like I said, I hate it and I find it a waste of time. But I read a really great article about why his jokes weren't funny. A lot of comedians who use shock humor for the initial sort of punch, and then there's an underlying line of truth that we all agree with, or an underlying different way of looking at things that we can sort of identify with. But what his humor does is there's a shock, and then there's just like an old haha women suck joke. And it's just like there's nothing new to it. There's no point in shocking people, you know?
He actually does host on the Comedy Network. I don't know if you've ever watched those roasts when they, and he hosts those, and he's very good at it.
But maybe that's his own material, that's Seth. The Academy, the Oscars are like the epitome.
I think some of them
they're
were.
at the top.
Some of them were, because I wasn't surprised by anything he said.
But they have a whole staff of writers.
Oh, I know,
show
but
writers.
they wrote for his style. They
Yeah.
didn't write what they would have written for Betty White for him, you know?
So are you saying he didn't write these jokes? Is that?
I think he had a
I
hand
don't
in it
know.
for sure.
Okay.
Well, you would think so, because of who he is, that he would have some sort of, I guess, say in the script and the material. But like Kim said, it was just plain, like there wasn't just a little blip in the show where it really kind of sucked. It just
and I feel like a lot of times, you know, like I really like that point about, you know, the joke has to have layers, but also a lot of comedians are like self-deprecating too when they say things like that. Like they'll use jokes that are like, "Ooh, I can't believe you said that," but then often it's about themselves.
Right? It's straight out of Spinal Tap when they have the smell the glove. Like the difference is that you're shoving the glove in her face, whereas they are the victims. If you make yourself the victim, then it's funnier, right?
But you didn't mind him so much.
I really didn't.
So why? Why aren't you offended by what everyone else is offended by here in this?
Because I wasn't watching to watch him.
Okay.
I really was interested to know who won, and I wanted to know what everyone was wearing.
Okay.
I was going to say fashion for Dan.
But when guys like Billy Crystal and Steve Martin host it, and it is genuinely, legitimately funny, you know, and don't you think that adds to it?
I don't think it matters, because that's not what I'm there watching for. I think he's filler to get through one point to the next, and I don't think he did a bad job. You know, some of it wasn't great, but some of it wasn't. It really just wasn't horrible. Like there's been way worse.
Yeah. If you
James
were
Franco last year.
the audience watching that show, they're all waiting to hear who wins.
Yeah,
like they don't care. They're like Daniel. I don't care. Maybe exactly. They don't care on all the other Gardew in between. But we as viewers want to be entertained. We want to have the full show. We want to see dancing and singing.
They have a host there for a reason, right? You don't just. It's not like you're putting on this multi-million-dollar production and it's like, oh, I guess we should get someone to host it, right? It's not. It's not that.
Golden Globes aren't hosted.
But I don't know. Look at your. Okay, so compare this to a wedding though, where you get an MC. Do you want your MC to steal the show?
Well, you want it, but you want the crowd. You want the guests to be entertained. Because I've been in some weddings with some pretty bad MCs, and that is a painful experience.
Right, but is it because it's dry, or because they're not segueing through stuff? Because I've been to the ones where you're at a wedding and they're talking
And they're
about
telling
this,
bad dad jokes.
or
and
they're reading off of a script that they got off the internet because they think it's going to be funny.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Internet jokes.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's not good.
And I think that's what it was. It was crappy material, but he did the best with what he had to work with, but he didn't steal the show. So you came through on the other side, and I remember Jennifer Lawrence falling down.
Yeah.
I remember, you know, who won the different awards.
But
I
I
liked
think
some of the speeches.
I don't think Steve Martin's ever stolen the show, but he's been excellent, right? Like he's been.
Well, and the point is he didn't piss people off.
Right.
Whereas
Yeah.
Yes.
Seth MacFarlane made a bunch of people offended and have a bad time watching the show because they were like, why is this guy putting my gender down every chance he gets?
Wrong platform.
The thing that blows my mind, though, there's been a lot of backlash on social media about how horrible and misogynistic he was. I'm surprised that so many people are surprised by that. I kind of look at it as like this. If you get a new puppy and you leave him in a room with a white carpet all day long, you can't get mad that he poops on the carpet, right? We can't get mad that Seth MacFarlane was a misogynist when they put him on stage. That's what he does, right? So I can't believe so many people are surprised by that.
I mean, a good analogy in a way, but at the same time, he is an adult who has to have some understanding of the audience and know what is and isn't appropriate in that case. You're at a classy event. You don't tell unclassy jokes, you know?
But he does. Like he's already chiseled himself out a niche with like 13-year-old boys who don't like girls. And they really like his stuff. He's not going to change.
That's not really the audience.
I really like his stuff. I mean, maybe that's why I wasn't offended.
But I love Family Guy.
Right.
I do. I love Family Guy. It's great. It used to be great. It's not great anymore. And I have no problem with those kind of jokes in that context. Like I said, I know what I'm getting into when I turn it on. But when you turn on the Oscars, you expect some level of class. And even the least classy person, you have to know your atmosphere. You make appropriate jokes for the
But would you, let's say,
environment.
back in the day when Andrew Dice Clay was a popular comedian, would you have turned on the Oscars and seen Andrew Dice Clay and expected anything but Andrew Dice Clay?
I think
He's a character on the other end of the spectrum, right? Like Seth MacFarlane's just a.
I think they're like super close.
Really? Yes,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Just different
Seth
kind.
MacFarlane's just politer and smiles more, but he says the exact same things.
Fair
I
enough.
think to end this, though, we will never see Seth MacFarlane hosting the Oscars again.
That is true.
I would like to vote for Queen Latifah.
I'm sure you would.
She would be spectacular. And she can sing.